and as the title says, this is a Q&A update, and of course, my thoughts. I'm not going to do a review. I don't like doing reviews of MMA events, but just kind of my thoughts on UFC 93. As far as the Q&A stuff goes, I did something absolutely stupid. I copied pretty much all the questions I was going to use, and I had deleted all the emails from them because it was filling up my email box. And then, stupidly, erased all the questions. Deleted all the questions, actually. So, with no way to get them back. So, unfortunately, they're all gone. So, everyone that sent in questions, if you could send in some more questions, it would be greatly appreciated. Some of you had put some really good questions, and I'm really sorry that I did that. That was a big goof up on my part. But there was really some good questions. Scorpio, if you hear this, please send your exact question back, because I think it's on one of the videos, so I might be able to find it. But if you could send the exact question you sent back, if you can remember how you did it, I greatly appreciate it, because that was probably the best question, and I definitely want to answer it. Even if you don't, I'll try to answer it. So you definitely want to do that. So, I'm sorry guys, that happened. I want to do a question and answer tomorrow, because that's what I was hoping to do, but yeah, shit happens, I guess. Alright, let's get on with my thoughts on UFC 93. Not a very good card in my opinion. I did not like this. I thought that this was a wreck of a show. Just not good. Even though the Dublin crowd did seem to enjoy it. This took place in Dublin. I'll get into that with the whole time difference and all of that later afterwards, because I will talk about it then. But let's get on with the actual fights. If you've never seen one of these, I don't go round by round. I just kind of talk about the fights. So there we go. Chris Littell, I know I'm not pronouncing that right, versus Marcus Davis. This was probably, in my opinion, the most enjoyable fight on this card. Pretty good back and forth action. Lots of good stand-up. The crowd was into it very well. You know, really good stuff. Enjoyed it, and like I said, the crowd was crazy into this. This was very much a, UK crowd. They were singing songs and all sorts of stuff. Really groovy stuff. Not stuff that you normally see with the US crowd. If it wasn't for the time difference, I would say the UFC needs to it'd probably be beneficial. And I know they're going to want to do more fights over there, or more cards over there, because they make more money over there apparently. So, but anyways, that is one added aspect for them doing shows over there, other than just making more money. Next we got Alan Belcher versus Dennis Kang. This was kind of interesting. This was Kang's debut, and Kang went out there, did a takedown, did some good. He was pretty much in control in the first round. Started to look like he was going to be in control in the second round. The ref stood them up. He went in again to take Belcher down, and Belcher got him into a guillotine, seemingly out of nowhere. I hope Kang gets another shot. I doubt he will, but unfortunately, I'd like to see him get a different shot, because this did seem like it just kind of came out of nowhere. But I shouldn't say out of nowhere, but it was kind of shocking, because he was, in my opinion, winning the fight. So there we go there. Then they announced that UFC 96 would be Quentin Jackson versus Keith Jardine. Wah, I'm not too big about that. Probably, the next few UFC shows are not going to be strong shows by the looks of it. It looks like, it just doesn't look like they're going to be able to get a lot of good fights for these next couple of shows, and I will get into that soon as well. Next we had Jeremy Horn versus, I know I'm not going to pronounce this guy's name right, Polaris. This was, if you like just good chess match kind of transitions and that sort of thing, which a lot of people I know don't, then you would not like this if you don't like that. If you like that, then you probably enjoyed this a little bit better than some other people did. I enjoyed it for that reason, because I do enjoy stuff like that. It wasn't the most exciting thing in the world, but we did get some suplexes, and that was good. We got a lot of transitions and few close submissions, but it was an okay fight. Not as good as the opener, But it was okay, and it was enjoyable. Definitely not for everybody, though. Next, as far as the main card goes, we got Shogun versus Mark Coleman. Going into this, I looked at this simply as a freak show fight, as there was no way I saw Mark Coleman winning this, particularly since they were fighting at light heavyweight, and Coleman, let's face it, Coleman's a heavyweight. Him to come down to light heavyweight was probably a pretty big deal at his age. The commentators talked about it a lot. I don't know if they were just trying to protect Coleman or if they legitimately it was a problem. Though Coleman looked very slow, very weak, much weaker than I would say he looked even in the build-up videos we saw to this and the training videos. So, but this was an ugly, ugly, ugly fight. Shogun looked bad. And I do mean bad. Mark Coleman didn't look good, but Mark Coleman's, in his 40s, and Shogun is not. And Shogun about got beat by Mark Coleman, who looked extremely bad, looked gassed through most of this, showed a lot of heart, though. I've seen a lot of people talking about this fight and talking about the fact that they liked it because of the story that was pretty much told, and that Coleman looked like he could win, and he did. A few times he looked like he had this fight won. But at some point, you were just like, you felt sorry for Coleman because you could tell he just didn't have the energy, didn't have the power, didn't have a lot of stuff. But he was able to take Shogun down a few times and almost submit him. So that was interesting. It looked like he was in the position to at least try to submit him and try to win. I saw some people thought that they actually, that to them Coleman looked like he was winning. To me, Shogun definitely looked like he was winning. But this was just an ugly, ugly fight. And what does UFC do? They reward this with Fight of the Night, and then give Shogun a main event shot with Liddell. Woo! UFC, great stuff there. Shogun versus Liddell. I hope none of those people that will want to see that fight saw this fight, because I think Shogun is going to get his ass handed to him unless something changes between that fight and this fight. Something's crazy going on. I've seen some people talk about Mark Coleman maybe fighting again after this, because it definitely looked like the fans were into him and somewhat of a draw. I would say that if this pay-per-view does any kind of decent buy rates, Coleman definitely has to get some of the credit for it, because given the fact that this pay-per-view originally aired at, I believe, sometime in the afternoon, depending on where you were in the United States, and the fact that, by the time it aired at UFC's regular time, I'm sure a lot of fans pretty much knew the outcomes already. So, to me, I don't see this being that big of a draw, and I'm sure that the word got around that maybe this was not a must-buy fight or a must-buy card by the time that happened. So, have to kind of wait and see how everything kind of happens. But I definitely, maybe they were, wanting to give Mark Coleman some extra money. Maybe that's why they gave it Fight of the Night. I don't know. But definitely wasn't Fight of the Night, in my opinion. Had a lot of drama to it. It did have that, but that was about it. And, if they wanted to give Mark Coleman another fight in UFC, I wouldn't be against it, as long as it was in a heavyweight and maybe against, one of the less skilled or scrub heavyweights in the UFC, just to see, maybe even on TV, just to see, if that would maybe do a bump in the ratings for UFC. But anyways, yes, we're going to get Shogun versus Liddell for some unknown god-awful reason. I'm sure that was decided before this, because I don't know why after that you would give Shogun that fight, because he looked absolutely wretched. Then we had the main event, Dan Henderson versus Rich Franklin. This was a pretty good fight, in my opinion, kind of back and forth. Definitely, in my opinion, Henderson won, I felt. It was a split decision, and I kind of agree with, I can understand that. It was a pretty close fight, depending on how, you would go with it. I thought Henderson, was winning just on the takedowns and the ground stuff. But, Franklin was definitely winning with the strikes, so it just kind of depended on how you would score it yourself. But this was an okay fight. Not a great main event by any stretch of the imagination, but it was definitely not worth the hype that it was. But I don't think anyone thought it was going to be that. So, but still, overall, not a great night for UFC. This would have been a very good TV card. This would have been a very good fight night card, in my opinion, and I think it would have popped a pretty good rating, which to me is still UFC's maybe lone, weak area is TV ratings. I know a lot of people probably don't agree with that, but if you just pulled off 2 shows that did 1 million buys back to back, UFC for their fight nights should probably be at least doing double of what they are in TV ratings, and that's still not even 10%. That would still, that's still. Here's the thing. Being that I am a pro wrestling fan, I followed pro wrestling for a very long time, and I know people hate to hear this, that UFC, it does have a pro wrestling business model. Well, if they have a pro wrestling business model, that means that when it comes to TV, what you want is good would be 10 to 15% of your television audience to buy your pay-per-views. With UFC, though, it's more like 1 for 1. If they're doing, or I shouldn't say 1 for 1, but it's about double. It's about 50%, and that's huge, unheard of pay-per-view percentages as opposed to what you're doing on television. Really, UFC should be doing with the fight nights, even on what people would consider weak cards, should probably be doing stuff in the 4s and 5s instead of in the 2s and just slightly 3s. And so, to me, that is one of their big areas of concern. That's one of the things I do think they need to work on. I don't think they ever will, because the pay-per-view buys are there, and I'm sure they're looking at the pay-per-view buys and saying, that's where the money is, that's what we're going to worry about. I think eventually people are going to. I think eventually you have to look to the future, realize that is your weak point, and kind of work on that. And that's something I don't think the UFC is, particularly if you saw the ratings for the PIN GSP special they did. Those weren't stellar ratings, particularly for something like that, in my opinion. But people are going to say what they are. But to me, this could have been on television, and I think popped a pretty good rating, in my opinion, particularly with Henderson and Franklin and Shogun and Coleman. I think this would have popped a pretty good rating and would have done pretty well. As far as what it would do on pay-per-view, I do think I'm pretty good at judging what stuff does on pay-per-views. But the last 2 UFC shows, particularly the last one, 92 did insane numbers. They did probably more than 91, which shocked a lot of people. So it probably did about what the De La Hoya Pacquiao pay-per-view did, which is a huge numbers for MMA. And so I don't want to act like the ratings are bad and so UFC's going to die. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that is their one weak point, and that's probably what they really need to work on. It doesn't seem like they're working on it. So, other than that, not a good show, in my opinion. Definitely not something you should go out of your way to see. And definitely, if you ordered it, I don't think, if somebody ordered this, I think that they would not feel too happy about ordering another UFC show, particularly one that maybe they were kind of on the fence for, because this wasn't necessarily a great show. But anyways, that is it. I'm out. As I said, if you would please send me some more questions for the question and answers, I would greatly appreciate it. I do apologize for that again. That was me being a complete dumbass. So, there we go. I'm out. Have a good one. Later.